Today we are with Yana Senina. Yana is a job search and recruitment expert and who is also the founder of Recruitment Backstage. Yana, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Juan. Mhm.
Thank you for joining. I saw your profile on LinkedIn. I checked your resume and I must say it was impressive. I saw that you were recruiting for Google and for Meta here in Zurich, in Switzerland. And I was like, okay, I need to interview this woman. I'm sure she can be one of the people in the world with the most tips for people who are looking for a job. So we really
I
need
have
to do
fun
this.
talking to the right person for sure. Thank you.
Perfect. So before I talk too much about your experience, I give the floor to you. If you can quickly present yourself, your background, and what you're doing now.
Sure. So I'm an international recruiter, the founder of Recruitment Backstage and also an expat. I've been in recruiting for about 10 years, where I transitioned from the hospitality and spent about 5 years in a recruitment agency called Swiss Links that is based out of Zurich, and then transitioned into the world of big tech, joined Google and then Meta. So during this time, I was recruiting professionals across more than 10 different locations across EMEA for 6 different industries with a focus on tech and across 15 different functions. So I have quite a strong, let's say, holistic view of recruitment and job search, of course. And right now I'm running a career club where I help job seekers land in the role that they would like. It's a whole ecosystem that supports job seekers from A to Z. I'll be happy to share more on it later.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I will ask you about it later because I want to understand in detail how do you help, which is your typical client, etc. But before we go in that direction, let's understand first Google and Meta. They are very
Mhm.
famous for having one of the most demanding application processes.
Mhm.
So Google and Meta are very famous for being one of the most demanding companies when it comes to application process. So from your side as a recruiter, which were the patterns that you saw
Mhm.
in successful candidates at Google?
Great. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Well, first of all, I must say that in order to land a role at any company, there are so many stars that have to align. So I wouldn't say that there is just, let's say, only one or two things. There is definitely a lot of things to be aligned, but there are certainly a few points that I can share that were quite common across most of the successful candidates. Well, first of all, that might be an unexpected one, a very structured and concise CV. Why? Because CV is, in a way, a written form of your communication. It shows how structured you are, how good you are at prioritizing information, at packaging and delivering information. And in the corporate world, where you're working in a very fast paced environment, no one has time, clear structured communication is absolutely key. Otherwise, you just won't be able to attend 15 meetings each half an hour back to back and make sure that everything works well. Number two is having data and metrics on the resume, which is super important, particularly for the tech companies, because these companies operate on data and they always look for candidates that think data as well, and also candidates that are always thinking about what was the impact of their work on the company. That is super important. And last but not least is proactiveness in a candidate's experience, meaning someone who not just kind of doing their job, but going beyond that and thinking, how can I fix things, what I can do better, that are solving problems, because this is what tech companies are looking for at the end of the day, problem solvers. And last but not least, that might be a fun fact as well. Specifically, when it comes to software engineering profiles, we actually found a correlation between the performance in technical interviews and the mastery of their hobbies. What we discovered is that those people that performed really well in interviews usually master their hobby to the, let's say, to the top level. So got a black belt in karate or became a master of sports and parachute, kind of showed us the level of dedication and commitment that the person puts into what they're doing.
Okay. So it's like work hard, play hard, right? You are
Correct.
a
Yes.
good professional, and at the same time, your hobby, you take it as a job almost. Like it's
In a
really
way, yes. In a
okay.
way.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. I've actually seen this pattern in some people, and it's true that it repeats. Like high performers are high performers everywhere, not just at the job. You cannot be a high performer at the job and then be sitting on the sofa all day. It would be weird. But yeah, yeah. Nice. And I like the way you structure your answer, by the way. It was one of the points, and it was also how you deliver your structure. I think
Thank you.
once I read a quote that was saying, the way you write is the way you think. So if you write a good CV, you can also tell that you think through, that you're able to, as you say, only highlight the important or the relevant information for the employer and not just plot out everything that's on your mind, like be specific.
Absolutely.
That's a good one. And that was, for example, the successful candidates. And what would you say was a common reason for people to get rejected before getting an interview in the application process, sending your CV?
Sure. Well, again, it's hard to say that, this was the main reason, but for most cases, it's simply people not matching the requirements of the role. For example, when I was recruiting for product management, we were looking for candidates only with technical background. So if you didn't have that background, we just simply could not consider you. Or simply someone else was better, because it's always a competition. And here what sometimes matters is as well the timing of the application, because especially in a situation where you have a lot of candidates applying for the same job, again, you don't know what's happening behind the scenes. So I usually always recommend entering the process earlier, in order to make sure that if you are the candidate that brings the right qualifications, you are invited into the interviewing process. So I would say these things: either simply not meeting the requirements, or applying too late.
Not being fast enough, like having set
Exactly.
up an alert and be as fast as you can with your application. Mm,
Correct. Maybe something to add as well about the qualifications, just to make it clearer. So, of course, on one hand, we have cases where, yes, we simply don't have the required experience that we're looking for, like this technical background for product management. But sometimes as well, again, the delivery of your experience on your CV, sometimes the way the CV is written, you just don't understand what the person was doing, or you simply miss out the information that you were hoping to see. So there are 2 points to it. So not
okay,
only the actual experience, but also how you present and what you present.
all right. And that's for catching the attention of the recruiter and getting the door open for a first interview. And if we talk about interviews, how does someone prepare for an interview with Google, Meta, and how does someone pass it?
Yes, great question. Well, the interviews, not only at Google and Meta, everywhere, I would say that they have to be treated like an exam. But the only difference, so sorry, like an exam, because the more you study for an exam, the higher your chances for, let's say, getting the top grade. Right. But what's the difference between an exam and an interview? That with an exam, if you get, let's say, 100 out of 100, or you get through the pass mark, you're good. While with the interviews, if you arrive second, you fail. That's the thing. So preparation is key. The more you study, the better. You have to out prepare your competitors, basically. So preparation is key, and making sure that you strategically think about every answer that you give, not just, let's say, the situational answers, but also how even you how do you do your intro? How do you present your motivation? How do you pitch yourself? Like every single detail matters. Believe it or not, was actually how candidates answer the question. Again, it has a lot to do with communication that very often let candidates down, because some candidates present information in an unstructured manner that it's impossible to follow. Others tend to answer a wrong interview question. And some others just give too much info, overwhelm the interviewer, and as a result, do not communicate the value the interviewer was hoping to hear.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine some people go off the tangent and start giving information that was not asked. And as you said, in the interview, it's like an exam. You have also limited time. So in that time, that's all you have. Maybe you're a different person, but if you didn't prepare, that's my only chance to judge you as a candidate. So that will be it. That's your chance. And I like the one that you said, if you're second, you lost. That's true. Yeah. So you need to out prepare all the other ones. And you were mentioning motivation. Something that is a hot topic is motivation letters. Do they work or not? In this one, what's your take?
Yes, thank you. Great question again. I have to confess, in my 10 years, maybe I've opened a few dozens of motivation letters
Okay.
as a recruiter while scanning them. So let's put it this way. Majority, in most cases, they don't get open, at least from my personal experience.
But then why are
However,
they required for some roles?
great question. I don't think they should be, but until let's say companies catch up with, let's say, especially big companies catch up with the latest trends, it might take another 10 years. So everybody thinks now that all large companies are using AI, but they don't realize how much time it takes to actually implement any single new tool in a company. So things don't go so fast. Going back to the cover letters, if the company is asking for them, I would still make sure that you submit one in a very high quality, because to be completely honest, whenever I did open those cover letters, I opened them in order to help myself make a final decision. Sometimes I would look at the CV and I will be a little bit unsure, like, okay, should I go with this candidate or not? Yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. And then I open the cover letter and it helps me decide. So it could be a perfectly written cover letter where you see the candidate did the research about the company, they're genuinely interested, and you think, oh wow, the candidate really put some effort into it. Let's give them a chance. Other times you open the cover letter, it's addressed to the wrong person, poorly written, badly formatted. You're like, no, okay. So of course, it's a bad formatting or this kind of small mistakes is not a reason to really reject a candidate. But when you have so many candidates to choose from, you gotta cut someone using this
Exactly.
criteria as well. But another thing not to forget is cover letters are also passed on to the hiring managers. Of course, companies have different systems, and hiring managers tend to open them a lot more often than recruiters. Although I did hear from many hiring managers as well, why do we need cover letters? I never read them, but some managers do. And given they're not working with such a high volume of candidates, they are more likely to actually read through it. So if there is an option, yes, go for it, definitely.
Yeah. For me, it's what you said, is the extra effort. Is how do you differentiate yourself from others? Maybe your cover letter won't be read by anyone, but maybe it will be. And if they read it and they see ChatGPT fluff, like very generic feeling, then yeah, you might lose your chance. So for me, the way I see motivation and cover letters is why, not only why you for that position, because that is your CV, but why you for that company. You know, what's your passion? What's your motivation behind? And
Definitely.
I strongly recommend everyone to do it, and even more if it's mandatory, right, by the company. Like, why wouldn't you do it? So motivation letters. But I understand your point of, yeah, I've actually never or almost never read them because you
Yeah.
have a big volume and you cannot be bothered, right? You cannot waste your time. And so we've covered CV, motivation letter, and a big pillar of who are you in the job market is LinkedIn today. And a lot of people
Definitely.
doing personal branding, a lot of people giving tips on how to stand out on LinkedIn. So, from your perspective, how can someone stand out as a candidate on LinkedIn?
Great question. Well, first of all, again, starting from the basics, the formatting, the presentation, the professionalism on your profile, simple things like ensuring that all of your sections are updated, you have a professional picture, professional background, tidy content. this is again a shopping window of your experience. Second, making sure that your LinkedIn profile is searchable, discoverable for recruiters. And what that means is doing quite a bit of work before updating your LinkedIn and CV, trying to understand what kind of job titles you should be targeting, what kind of, let's say, industry keywords the recruiters would be looking for, what kind of other, let's say, special keywords that could be relevant and representing your profile, and ensuring that your headline is updated with those. So instead of using your headline to share your life motto, which a lot of candidates do, or maybe something else, it's really important to focus on your title, which should be the most common title used in the industry or market where you're applying to. Maybe one or two titles, let's say program project manager.
The
That
title
would
should
be
be the problem you solve, right? Like how the position of the problem that you solve is called at companies, right?
No, just the job title is starting with. That could also be the case. But the starting with the job title, because when you look for a candidate, the first thing you type is the job title,
Exactly.
industry. So the job title, you should analyze what kind of the most common titles there are in your target field of work, and make sure you put those on your headline. Again, there should not be five. I would say two, maximum three. Again, kind of thinking where there could be the synonyms. So just as one quick example could be a program/project manager as an example. Then you should go for industry. LinkedIn has industry filters, so make sure that it's updated correctly in your intro section. So let's say if I'm looking for someone from, let's say, hardware, I could put computer hardware, but it happens often that the industry where you're coming from, maybe there are different wordings or synonyms that you could use, or maybe you have multiple industries experience that you want to highlight. So you could put that on your headline as well. For example, biotech and pharma, for example. And then you would want to also put some sort of, let's say, specialization within your role, within your industry. So what exactly do you do? So for example, for product managers, it would be very interesting for recruiters to know what kind of products they worked on. So did they work on SaaS? Did they work on B2C, mobile apps? And what kind of products those were? Is it e-commerce, data management, or something else? So think about which of those, let's say, specialized keywords that could stand out in recruiter searches.
Okay.
That's number one. Number two is making sure you do what you can in order to get LinkedIn's algorithm push you up in the searches when the recruiters are looking for you. So we
How
have
do you do
a
that?
special.
How do
Hmm?
you do that? Because the algorithm is a mystery for me.
Yes, nothing too difficult, honestly. And LinkedIn has a page on it, an official page. What happens is, so LinkedIn Recruiter product that is used by companies has a filter that is called candidate spotlights. Why this filter exists? Because believe it or not, but hiring people is as difficult as looking for a job. And the main challenge that recruiters face when sourcing actively on LinkedIn is candidates either not responding to them or candidates not being interested in the jobs. So LinkedIn has a filter called Candidate Spotlights that enables recruiters to approach candidates that are more likely to respond. So those things that fall in the spotlights are the open to work filter, which you can do and make it visible either to recruiters only or everyone. Then being considered by LinkedIn as an active talent, meaning if you have updated your profile recently, or maybe if you have been with the company for longer than the average tenure of that company, or if you're working for a company that is going through layoffs, or if you apply to the job of this company through LinkedIn in the past, if you follow the company, or if you're connected with if you have first degree connections with the employees of the company. There are a number of things. They are constantly being updated, and everyone can look at them at an official LinkedIn page. There is no secret, around it. It's right there.
It's no
Candidate
secret.
spotlight.
It's just that I'm not reading it. Okay.
Exactly. And last but not least, I wouldn't recommend copying the CV into LinkedIn. Simply because, well, first of all, you always want to tweak your CV a little bit for the specific role that you are applying to. And LinkedIn is not your CV. It's something, let's say, that draws a slightly broader picture about you. So use that, show how you do things, meaning, let's say, your why, your life mottos can be on the summary section. Maybe why you chose certain field, your motivation, your aspirations, your biggest achievements. All of this could be shared in the summary section. And the experience section, I usually recommend just keeping 1 or 2 lines that explains briefly the nature of your work, one thing you're most proud of, and then for the rest, let people reach out for your CV.
That was a very complete list of tips for people to start acting on their LinkedIn now, like really changing their
Definitely.
LinkedIn now. I see the world of LinkedIn as something very simple yet very complex because, as you said, you're competing with a lot of people. Like, it should be simple, but the competition makes it crazy, and you see very talented profiles or very fancy profiles, while at the same time, as you say, you see profiles that are, I don't know, that were not updated at all in 10 years or with their life motto in the title. And it's like, come on, how are you planning to get a job with that? Like, no one is going to search on the search bar for your motto. This is the first thing that should come to mind, right? Like, when you try to search something on Amazon, for example, you type the keywords. So that should be the mental exercise, right? When you want
Absolutely.
recruiters to find you, you need to think of the keywords that you would use to find you. It's
Exactly. If
simple
you were
yet
on Amazon, what would be your item name? Sounds
exactly, yeah.
terrible, but yes, it's true. It's absolutely true.
It's like that, yeah, because they're searching on a catalog. In the end, you're one line in the catalog of LinkedIn. Okay. Now, interesting, eh? Good conversation on that one. Let's close that topic on the recruiting because I believe you've given a lot of tips and we can talk more in detail later of extra services that you provide. I want to focus on the recruiting part itself because this podcast is, of course, of international careers, and I like to bring people to share how they made an international career and to give tips to other people who are in the same path as them. So, in your case, recruiting, and you were here in Switzerland. So, first of all, I want to understand how can someone become a recruiter and how to do it for Google in Switzerland.
Great questions. So let me think how to start. Let's say becoming a recruiter in general is relatively easy. Why? Because you can do it through recruitment agencies. And of course, there are different type of agencies that you find. Some are, let's say, more established, strong agencies. Others are smaller that might have, let's say, kind of low entering bar and would be very much open to hiring candidates from any background. Was my case. I was a sales professional from a hospitality background, and I just kind of found myself in recruitment. And to be fair, most of my recruitment colleagues that I speak to, everyone kind of ends up in recruitment. I don't know many people that wanted to specifically do recruitment. They just somehow find themselves there
Okay.
if they are good with people and if they're good with sales. So that part is, let's say, relatively easy, but of course it then depends at which level of career you are, whether you're a career starter or you're mid-level. Maybe you already have 15 years of experience and you decide you want to become a recruiter. So it of course depends, but let's say for more junior professionals, this is quite an easy entrance point. Then, of course, many people enter through, let's say, if they start not from, let's say, small agencies, they kind of go directly in-house And there, again, depending which company you're applying to, let's say maybe smaller companies, private companies would have a lower entrance bar. And as long as you have experience with dealing with people, being in a people-facing role, relationship role, sales role, that's good enough. Other companies, of course, they would have much higher expectations. Let's say the large corporations, so they would perhaps hire candidates from top business school, if it's, let's say, if it's a first job, or they would hire someone with a previous experience in a similar field. So that's to answer that question. To answer the question how to become a recruiter at Google, and specifically in Zurich, I'm afraid it might be a difficult one. Why? Because not just Google, but all of big tech went through quite a big layoffs and restructuring, and that greatly affected, I would say, 90% of recruiters in one way or the other. And
AI,
specific,
I'm sure.
oh no, it actually wasn't AI. Actually, the layoffs in big tech came much earlier, and they were the result of overhiring during COVID.
All right.
Literally one word on that, one phrase on that. During COVID, e-commerce boomed. Hence, all of the big tech companies were growing drastically on ads. And naturally, there was a gigantic hiring wave during COVID. When that slowed down, people went outside, stopped shopping, hence the growth stopped, hence hiring stopped, hence recruiters kind of ended up themselves without jobs to do. Plus all the other things, wars, then AI, many things.
That's a good
Competition with other
explanation. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, competition with other platforms. Let's say in the case with Meta specifically, that was the overinvestment in metaverse back in the days, and facing huge competition with TikTok because the younger generation were going after TikTok rather than Facebook and Instagram. So there were combination of things really. But let's say it starts with COVID.
Okay.
So if you are particularly in Zurich, I believe that from my to my knowledge, there is no more recruiting function in Zurich. Most of the hiring for Zurich is done from other locations, which is UK or Ireland. Or other locations within EMEA. So big tech companies, they have, let's say, they are located more or less in the same hubs, which is London, Dublin, Munich, Paris, Warsaw, Poland, a big one, Zurich. So to become a recruiter at Google in Zurich would be extremely challenging, almost impossible. Of course, there are still some HR professionals, but they are covering other type of roles within the HR space, not recruitment per se, as it was when I was there.
And in general, how to become a recruiter for Google?
Yes, how to become a recruiter for Google. So there are basically two ways you can explore. Either you apply directly. In order to be hired directly, you need to be coming from, let's say, already a very established background, maybe working for another large tech company, Oracle, Salesforce, etc. Or another way is to be a contractor providing recruitment services for Google as a RPO, recruitment process outsourced, where you work for a partner of Google that they are using to recruit and take care of the roles for Google. And then if and when there is a full-time opening, try to use your internal connections that you have built in order to get in.
Okay. So there's no simple way from one day to another. You need to build it. It's a long
Absolutely.
process. Okay.
Absolutely. There are no simple solutions when it comes to career growth and development.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's true.
And breaking through top companies for sure.
Specifically
Nothing.
yeah. International, a lot of times say, because people want answers and they want solutions from one day to another, right? But specifically when having an international career, when moving abroad, sometimes you cannot go from point A to B. You need to do an intermediate step and move laterally or move into another role, and then that will be able to give you the spot to jump to the next point. But yeah, sometimes there is no shortcut. Almost all the time, there is no shortcut.
There is no
Okay.
shortcut. This is, I think, the reality that we need to accept that, if there was a shortcut, everybody could do it.
Yes,
But the reality is, it's just a matter of hard work and persistence.
it is like
That's
that.
the
Yeah.
recipe.
All right.
Mhm.
So we closed the episode for recruiting for Google, and I want to talk about your episode here in Zurich, because Zurich is very famous. Well, Switzerland overall is very famous, and Zurich as well, because a lot of international companies are here. So I want to understand your experience in Zurich and also understand what is the salary range for a recruiter here in Google in Zurich.
Sure. I wouldn't, let's say, cover the salaries at particular companies. I could, maybe cover generally on the Zurich market. So the question is the salaries, right? And the second part?
Oh, I want to understand the salaries and the
Mhm.
overall quality of life here. How was your
Okay.
experience
Yes.
in Zurich?
Yes. Okay. So maybe let's talk about the salaries first. I have to be honest, the range for recruitment roles is quite large in Zurich from what I've experienced as on from the recruitment side, recruiting other recruiters back in the days, as well as working with candidates that landed recruitment opportunities, as well as being a job seeker myself back in the days. So I would say it varies quite a bit, but roughly, let's say if we're talking about an experienced senior recruiter, which is an individual contributor, not a manager, so not a team leader, it could range between 100 to 140 as a base salary, with obviously, let's say, larger corporations paying, let's say, on a higher end of that. It could go even higher, but that is perhaps more exceptional basis. And then, of course, if you are a team lead, if you're head of recruitment, then obviously it's a different range. Then, when it comes to Zurich itself, well, wonderful memories. What can I say? Been spent a lot of years there and in Switzerland in general. So I spent 8 years in Switzerland and lived in the French part, in the German part. I'm personally grateful to Zurich for the amazing opportunities it given me professionally, for the amazing friends I've met that I'm friends with until now. And I think Zurich is a great place to build your career, to build your professional network, because if I'm not mistaken, it has the largest concentration of expats percentage-wise in the European and in Europe, minus London. So it's a great place to build yourself as a young professional from both sides, professionally and personally. And what I personally loved about Zurich was the safety and the cleanliness of the
Yes.
city. I think after you live in Switzerland, in Zurich, whenever you go somewhere else, you smell the air, and you're like, no, this is not this is not the Swiss air.
Yeah.
Same with
Your
water,
bar
like
is
no,
high after living in
exactly,
Switzerland. Your standards are
exactly,
super high, yeah, for safety, for cleanliness, for transport, for everything. That's a good and a bad
absolutely,
thing as the way, because you're spoiled.
exactly, yes. You become very picky and unsatisfied
Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah.
you don't experience that. So that part was really great. Of course, there were also some downsides that I didn't, like as much about Zurich and Switzerland, and that's why I eventually left, leveraging on my experience that I have built there. Well, first of all, is the weather. I am originally from Central Europe, from a very cold place, but I think I was meant to be born by the sea. So I always missed the sunny weather and the sea. So weather was definitely problematic for me. And I think embracing this Mediterranean soul of mine, and after having lived in Dubai for many years as well, I spent there 7 years. I am quite used to, let's say, being very spontaneous, last minute, also late sometimes. So I think the very, let's say, strict expectation in Switzerland about, being very specific with the timelines and perhaps planning things a little bit too much in advance.
Yes,
That was the part that my Mediterranean slash Siberian soul did not, not
I
Siberian
totally
actually,
understand you.
Euro-Modern soul did not get along with. Let's put it this way.
I totally understand you. It's true that here in Switzerland, it's a common practice to schedule things in the calendar for next month or even the next 2 months. So if you want to see a friend,
Yeah.
you both of you bring up the calendars and you say, okay, I have a spot in 1 month, in 2 months. While
Yes.
when I mean I'm from Spain, right? So when I was in Spain, this is nothing like that. You're really making the plan for the weekend the day before. And if you already talk about it on Tuesday, it's like, hey, come on, man, we're just starting the
Easy,
week.
easy.
Like easy.
Exactly.
It's really like
So
that. Yeah.
when
I
I
see.
relocated from Switzerland to Italy, it was such a cultural shock for me because I would have friends calling me on a Friday night at 8:30 p.m. and saying, "Hey, let's go for dinner." So
Yeah.
that was that
It's
was
like that.
shocking at first, and then I'm like, okay, this is actually what I'm used to. So let's go with that.
Nice. All right. So we close the topic of Zurich, and now I want to ask you about your current venture, about your current company.
Yes.
So I want to be very specific. First of all, I want to understand what is the typical client, what is the person that you help, and how do you help?
Great question. So the typical client is someone who is based in Switzerland, Germany, or Spain. These are where most of our clients are coming from, or other EU hubs that have presence of international companies and a strong startup scene. Most of our clients are working in tech, I would say 70%. However, 30% also come from other sectors, FMCG, luxury, pharma, commodity trading. So it also varies. In terms of professions, most of the clients are business professionals or they are in between business and tech. So product managers, project program managers, sales, business development, account managers, marketing, HR, legal. And sometimes we also cater to pure technical profiles. The reason for that is, well, I'm not a technical person, obviously, and I really, really enjoy working with people from A to Z and being able to help literally at every stage of the search process. I obviously cannot do that for the technical people. That's why it's not the technical people are not the focus for the business specifically. And what we do, we are actually helping people that are ready to work hard and persist and achieve amazing results. Actually, people that are not looking for shortcuts, but are ready to put in the work for the best results. It was actually to my surprise, I would say 99% of people we work with are either top performers or high achievers, or just even if they're not high achievers yet, they are super ambitious, they want to grow, they want to make a step up in their career, they want to join better companies, they want to make more money, they want to relocate, they want to transition to new industries, they want role with more responsibilities. So these are the type of people that we work with, and I'm extremely grateful for that. So
Yes.
how we work?
You're attracting the right ones. You're not attracting
Yes.
the ones that want shortcuts, which is important for you as well.
Yes, yes, definitely. So I'm really grateful for all our clients. So thank you all for being so amazing and for coming to us for help. And how we work, we make sure that we take our clients throughout the whole job search journey and all the way until they actually succeed and get an offer. That means we cover the whole cycle of the job search, starting with defining, let's say, a clear target, making a plan and strategy for it, working on how to sell yourself, like identifying your achievements and packaging them to then present them on your CV, LinkedIn cover letters, training for mock interviews and negotiation. And this is all done within the ecosystem of the Career Club that eventually delivers services and support through individual, group, support as well as self-paced resources. So things like CV and LinkedIn reviews and offer negotiation support, weekly sessions on weekly Q&A sessions where people ask questions, give updates on their search, to practical workshops where we tackle specific part of the job search, like demo mock interviews or crafting a job search strategy, to networking. I personally work on introducing our club members to the people in my network to the extent possible. And then within the club, there's quite a bit of networking happening as well. Successful alumni or people that maybe worked for other companies. So maybe someone is working for a company. For me, it is not an exciting company anymore, but for others, it might be. So there is a lot of this support and interaction going on within the members. And there is also a self-paced part where people follow our plan and our career job search program at their own pace, at their own time. And I have to be honest, it does take time now to find a job. That's why we actually extend an access after 3 months to our club members for free until they land it. Simply because if before 2 to 3 months was, let's say, a quick turnaround, now 4 months is a quick one. And if, let's say, if you want to really break into a good company, some back in the days it was maybe 4, now it's 6 to 9. Relocation, even longer. So for those that are listening to us that are willing to relocate, be prepared to search for a job for 6 to 12 months if relocation is required. Of course, there are always exceptions, but I'm just saying this in order not to, have people frustrated and disappointed if they
Yeah.
realize that it doesn't happen, you know, because they pressed one magic button, because again, there is no shortcut around it.
No shortcut. No, no. I think this is
No
going to be
shortcut.
the title of the of the
I
interview.
was thinking,
No
I was
shortcuts
thinking,
with Yana Selina.
exactly. No shortcuts, exactly. Maybe I should put it on my LinkedIn headline.
It's a nice one, yeah, indeed. And I've interviewed a lot of people who talk about their career, and one thing in common is that the majority of them there was no shortcut. Some of them even took 1 year to get a job. Like I had a guy from private banking here in Switzerland. He was sharing that the job that he got was from an interview that he did the previous year, like really 1 year time to get a decision, to get the approval from everyone. So yeah, that's a good tip. Be patient, be consistent, and stick to the plan. Follow the plan.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So, Jana, now we're reaching towards the end of the podcast. And before I finish, I always like to ask three quick questions that also need three
Yes.
quick answers. The first one is, which was your favorite local food? In your case, in Zurich, in Switzerland.
Oh, great question. Zurichville.
Zurichville, yeah, I like it. Love
Veal. Love
it.
it.
Same.
It actually reminds me of the Russian version of beef stroganoff,
Mhm.
and I absolutely loved it. So that was my
Okay.
favorite. I,
The
I
second
didn't want to
one,
say raclette because kind of an obvious one. So
all right.
Zurichville.
Yeah, I mean, you can always say fondue, like Swiss fondue. That's it. That's what everyone says. But yeah, original. The second one is one book that you recommend.
Well, I cannot recommend enough War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. To me, this is an absolute masterpiece. I've read it a few times at different stages of my life, and every time it was a completely new experience. For non-Russian speakers, I would strongly recommend downloading the map of characters so that you don't get lost. It's kind of a Game of Thrones, but written in the book, so highly recommend.
All right. Interesting. And the last one is the best advice you ever received.
Great question as well. Lots of great advices that I was given by different people from work and personal. One that stands out to me was the one that was given by my ex-colleague at Google. When I just joined, I was obviously so scared and overwhelmed by how everything was. And I would always ask everyone, is it okay to do this? Is it okay to do that? Am I doing a disaster if I'm going to do this? And at some point she came to me and she said, Yana, don't ask about if it's okay. Just do it. As long as you can explain your rationale, why did you do it? It's fine. And this really stuck to me for, throughout the whole years of my life, because indeed, You don't need to be scared of doing things, whether it's in life or at work. Just really take the time to think really well about it, define pros and cons, and then be confident of your decision. So before making a decision, think, reflect, and you will have no problems with defending or sticking to your decision.
Yeah. And remember the logic that you use in case you need to explain it. That's it.
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
I like that. I like that tip. All right. Thank you very much, Jana. It was great to have you in the episode. You delivered a lot of tips for job seekers,
Thank
and
you.
I could not dream of a better episode with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Such a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this conversation, follow me and share it with that friend who wants to move abroad. And if you're listening on Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts, please like and rate the show with 5 stars. It helps me a lot more than you think. Thank you very much and see you on the next one.